To most of the galaxy, Earth was only a warning told in dim bars and academy halls. Do not corner primitives. Do not teach them your tools. They will turn sorrow into engines. Curry's prime drifted under a green sky that moved like curtains of water. Aurora storms wrapped the poles each night and bled into orbit. There above the glaciers and black seas, the Coalition kept watch with a thin ring of defense stations and a busier ring of customs docks. It was a quiet world, a place for refueling and trade, a place to look away from wars. Myra Cade worked the night shift in Dock 12B on the lower ring. She was human, though she told no one that. Her papers said colonial mixed breed from a dead belt. Her hands said otherwise. Scar on the left wrist from a field welder. Skin burned pale on the knuckles from old acid cleansers. The habits said the rest. She checked bolts twice. She spoke only when needed. She left no trace on a console, wiping down even after kind words. Talon Jor, her supervisor and oldest friend on Curry's, saw more than papers. He was Galari, a long, sinewy being with a cartilage crest that glowed faintly when he felt strong emotion. He had given Myra the job after she rebuilt a cooling loop with scrap and a water filter in under half an hour. He had never asked what world she came from. He never said the word Earth. On this night, Dock 12B hummed with the low music of work. Cargo frames lifted and settled. Fuel lines hissed. The aurora was bright above the glass roof of the bay, thin green sheets sliding over the stars. Valve 3, Talon said, handing her a scanner. Still reading a pressure hiss. Myra crouched and listened. Her ear could hear what the device always missed. A rhythm. A beat like a tired heart. She tightened the gasket. The hiss stopped. Talon's crest flickered in relief. You hear ghosts and pipes, he said. I hear lazy sealant, Myra answered with a small smile. Then the night tore. Out beyond the docks, a patch of starfield folded like bruised skin pressed by a thumb. Sensors went white for a single blink. Every system in the bay paused mid-task. The cranes froze. The pumps stuttered. The lights dimmed and steadied. Dock workers lifted their heads as one. From that wound in space, the ship came through. It was long and dark and wrong in a way the mind could not explain at first glance. Not smooth like Coalition ships. Not elegant like Valyrian spire ships. It was slab and rib and scar. 10 kilometers, maybe more, its hull stitched with old plating that looked like armor and bone at once. Green light pulsed from narrow bands buried in its sides as if from veins. Debris drifted around it like a black snowfall. Broken struts, ruined satellites, rusted plates scrawled in a script most had never seen. Myra had seen it, only once hidden in a banned archive, a dead language that burned to look at. She knew the straight lines and the tight angles, and the way letters hugged each other like soldiers in a trench. Human standard. Her breath left her without sound. All the docks erupted at once. Shouts, orders, warnings. The authority net flooded with hard voices. All stations hold position. Defense ring to red. Unknown warship in high orbit. No response to hail. Talon Jor stood beside Myra, crest bright with fear that he could not hide. He whispered like a child afraid to wake a parent. What is that? Myra's mouth was dry. No idea, she lied. He looked at her for a heartbeat. Then he let the lie live, because there were bigger ones outside. The unknown ship slid like a mountain across the green sky. It did not fire. It did not turn. It only watched. In the defense ring above, sentry captains pushed scanners until their boards ought to have melted. No return. No heat. No crew. No logic. The Coalition sector command lit up with more light than a festival. 12 systems called in at once. Admirals argued on triple feeds. Keep distance. Hold fire. Form a cordon. Raise the diplomatic channel. Who speaks to a tomb? Myra leaned her hands on the rail at the edge of the maintenance platform and watched it pass. She could feel something in her teeth. A pressure. A low hum under the bones of the dock. It made her think of an old storm shelter, with a generator waking after a blackout. It made her think of voices not yet heard. "Back to work," Talon said, breath too fast. "Until we get orders." They did not get orders. They got silence. Every screen in the bay went black in the same heartbeat. The authority net died. The local net died. Even the little battery lights on hand tools went dark and then blinked back in a slow, sick rhythm like they were trying to remember how to be lights. And then Doc 12B saw a thing no doc anywhere should see. The ceiling glass became a screen. Not images from outside. Images from nowhere. From a place that tasted like salt and ash and iron in the nose. A beach under a black sky. Water on fire. Children with rags over their faces running through steam. A city of tall towers melting like candles, while small ships tried to climb into the air and were cut in half by thin lines of light. Myra's hands shook. Her lungs refused to pull air. The pictures were not pictures. They were memories, so clean and sharp they sliced the mind as they arrived. She felt the weight at the back of her skull she knew too well. The old anchor bead, smooth and warm, the only thing she had from a family whose names she did not speak aloud. It pulsed against her skin like a second heartbeat. Around her, aliens cried out. A dock worker with tusks like ivory harpoons dropped to his knees, wailing. A light-boned clerk clawed at her eyes. Talon jaw stood rigid, crest poolsing in a color Myra had never seen before, gray like old smoke. "What is this?" he gasped. "Myra, what is this?" She could not answer because the screen showed a last thing. A ship like the one above the planet, but younger, clean, new, on a sky the color of a bruise. A name burned across its hull in human letters. Leviathan. The name hit her like a hand. The bead at her neck went hot enough to hurt. The pictures cut off in the next breath. The dock fell into a silence so heavy the air groaned. Emergency klaxons came late, weak after the storm of memory. Troops in gray armor poured through the bay doors. Coalition Purity Bureau, faces hidden behind polarized visors, rifles set to bright stun for crowds. In place, the lead officer barked through a speaker. "Remain in place. By order of Sector Command, all human genome workers are to be detained for screening and safety." Talon moved in front of Myra without thinking. He set his body between her and the rifles. His crest burned bright green now, the color of defiance. "She is registered Kashari mixed," he said, voice flat. "My worker is not human." The officer raised a wrist scanner. It beeped through the air. Myra felt the bead at her neck pulse again, as if it wanted to answer the scanner itself. The device flickered. Then it showed nothing at all. "Device interference," the officer said. "Take them both." Myra reached up as if to push Talon aside. Instead, she touched his forearm lightly. "Do not fight. Do not die for me." Her eyes said it. He shook his head. "Do not order me to watch them take you." His crest said it back. Overhead, the ship outside turned. Slow, inevitable, beautiful like a storm that loves no one. Every rifle in the bay lifted. Every worker held their breath. And then the ship spoke. It did not use sound. It used the space between sounds. It rode across the skin. It pressed words inside bones. Myra Cade. Her name filled her head and then filled the bay, a whisper carried by no. Talon heard it. The officers heard it. Every being in the dock heard it and knew that the voice had chosen a single target. The lead officer turned his visor toward her. His stance changed from control to fear. "Identify," he demanded, the word thin. Myra tried to speak. Her throat worked and failed. She tasted metal. The voice returned, slower, older, gentle in a way that made her want to cry. "Child of the memory line. Primary key detected. Witness requested." A pinpoint of green light appeared in the air above the bay floor. It hung there like a dewdrop. Then it stretched into a line, and then a doorway no taller than a person, a thin frame of light with blackness inside it like deep water. Rifles came up again. The lead officer shouted something about containment and fire and breach teams. No one moved. The doorway hummed softly, patient, as if waiting for a late child after school. Talon took Myra's wrist. "Do not," he whispered. "They will kill you before you take 2 steps." "They will kill me if I stay," she said, voice finally there like a blade. "And you with me." "No," he said, crest dimming. "I will yield. I will lie. I will buy time." For a heartbeat she saw it. Talon beaten in a cell for covering her name. Talon sent to some outer mine for helping a myth. Talon's crest cut off with a dull knife because he had loved a friend more than a law. Myra put his hand back against his own chest. "Thank you for the job," she said. "Thank you for the tools." Her smile was small and real. "Thank you for asking no questions." He swallowed. "Myra, what are you?" "Stubborn," she said. "Human." "Sorry." She stepped toward the doorway. The officers finally moved. They shouted. They aimed. Bright light gathered at the mouths of the rifles. The doorway bloomed. The black inside it turned the color of deep ocean when moonlight touches it. A wind that did not exist in the sealed bay brushed Myra's face and smelled like rain on dust and hot metal in winter. It smelled like home she had never seen. "Stop," the officer shouted. Talon did not stop. He stepped with her. He could not let her be alone in a thing this large. Myra glanced at him. "No," she whispered. "Please." "I will not let them take your story from you," he answered. The first rifle fired. The bolt hit the doorway and vanished with a soft hiss like a tide over sand. The second bolt did the same. The third. The bay fell quiet again. The doorway waited. Myra took another step. The bead at her neck burned and then went cool. The air near the doorway felt like the center of a thunderhead right before lightning chooses where to live. "Myra," Talon said, voice shaking now not from fear but from a feeling he could not name. "If you walk in, do I lose you?" She looked at the ship outside. She looked at the doorway and the rifles and the green sky. She looked at the friend whose crest had learned her moods over years. "You do not lose me," she said softly. "You helped me find the part that was lost." She stepped into the light. Cold, then warmth like hands, then dark that was not empty, then a floor under her feet that felt like steel and bone welded together. The light behind her shut like an eye. The dock and the rifles and Talon vanished. A low hum rose around her, not mechanical but living. She stood in a corridor too tall for any ship she had ever seen. Walls of layered plates ran in long ribs, each etched with tiny names in an alphabet that made her chest hurt. Thin green light bled from seams as if the ship itself breathed softly in sleep. She turned. The corridor was empty. For a heartbeat terror filled her throat. Then the voice came back, near now, not in the bones of the world, but in the air like a whisper from the mouth of a friend who stands beside you. "Myra Cade." She lifted her chin. "I am here," she said. The voice warmed. "Welcome aboard, witness. Tell me what they did to us." She drew in a long breath that trembled at the end. "My people burned," she said. "My people begged for truth and got slogans. I am here to remember. I am here to learn." Silence held her gently, as if the ship listened with more than sensors. Then she heard a second sound along the corridor like a slow heartbeat, learning its rhythm after a long sleep. Footsteps. Not many. Not hurried. Human. Myra turned as a figure stepped out of the green shadow. Tall, gaunt, eyes like old iron, wearing a faded coat with a patch over the heart. The patch was a circle with 12 stars and a sword of light. He looked at her as if he knew her face. "Myra Cade," he said. Finally, her mouth went dry again. "Who are you?" He smiled, and it hurt to see because it was tired and kind. "Jonah Ward," he said. "Captain of the Leviathan." The corridor shivered like a living thing at the word captain. Myra's knees almost gave out. The ship that should not be had woken. The ghost who should not live stood before her. And outside on Curry's Prime, every defense battery rose to fire. The corridor seemed endless, ribs of steel and scars of fire stretching out of sight. The green glow that leaked from the seams pulsed with a rhythm that reminded Myra of veins, of blood beneath skin. The air was thin, cold, but carried a smell that pierced her heart, burnt oil, ozone, and faintly earth after rain. She should not know that smell. She had never been to Earth. But the memory slid into her like a story she had heard 1,000 times. Jonah Ward stood there, waiting as if he had always known she would arrive. He looked both young and old, alive and not. His eyes were human, gray with flecks of light that caught her breath, but his body, his movements were wrong, too precise, too strong. His hands looked like flesh, but when they curled, the sound was metal shifting. "You're supposed to be dead," Myra whispered. He smiled, faint and sad. "I am." His voice was calm, steady, carrying something she could not place. Not power, not authority, memory. She swallowed, her throat dry. "How long have you been here?" 6 centuries, Jonah said. Waiting, listening, remembering. Her pulse hammered in her ears. "That's impossible." "Earth was impossible too," he answered. His gaze searched her face. "But you know it, don't you? You feel it in your bones, that you are more than what they told you, that your people are not extinct." Myra wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong. But her necklace bead throbbed against her skin again, hot and cold in turns, like it was answering him for her. Jonah's expression softened. "You carry an anchor." She touched the bead. "This." Yes, a shard of memory core. They smuggled them out when the last fleets burned. Fragments of Leviathan's soul. They were given to the children who might survive. Myra's knees felt weak. "My mother gave it to me. She said it was just a charm, a keepsake from a colony that burned." "It was more," Jonah said. "It was the call that led you here." The ship groaned around them like a giant waking in its sleep. The green light pulsed brighter, casting long shadows. Myra wrapped her arms around herself, chilled. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you are what the galaxy fears most," Jonah said simply. "A human who remembers." Outside, the Coalition fleet was in chaos. High Admiral Threx, commander of the Galactic Armada, had never felt this powerless. His species had ruled wars, had crushed insurrections, had built a reputation of iron. But now his scales prickled and his claws tapped uselessly against the table. "Status," he barked. 30 sentinels deployed, Admiral. Weapons locked, but..." The officer's voice broke. "Sir, none of them are responding. Systems are failing. Crew are reporting hallucinations." "Hallucinations?" Threx snarled. "Yes, sir, they claim to see humans, dead soldiers, cities burning. Some crews refuse to fire, others have gone silent." Threx's crest of spines trembled with fury. "It's a weapon, a psychic field, jam it, blind it, burn it." Another officer whispered, "We tried. Our scanners show nothing, like the ship is colder than vacuum. No crew, no heat, no logic." Threx leaned forward, his throat clicking. "Then it is worse than a weapon. It is memory, and memory is stronger than fire." Inside the Leviathan, Jonah led Myra deeper into the ship. The corridors bent downward, opening into a vast chamber that looked like a cathedral. Rows of consoles stood silent, screens shattered or dark. Seats stood empty, belts still strapped, as if waiting for ghosts to sit again. Myra stepped slowly, afraid to disturb the silence. "Where are they?" she asked quietly. Jonah paused. "Everywhere. The crew is not gone. They are the Leviathan. They live in her walls, her wires, her core. They gave themselves when flesh failed." "You mean they uploaded?" "Not machines," Jonah said sharply. "Not AI, people, soldiers, mothers, children. They bound themselves to keep Earth alive. Their last choice was not to surrender, but to remember." Myra shivered. The walls seemed to shift with faint shadows. She thought she saw faces in the flickering green glow. Eyes, hands, a child's laugh, soft and broken, echoed for half a second before fading. Her stomach twisted. "Why show me?" "Because the galaxy has forgotten," Jonah said, his voice hardened, steel beneath sorrow. "They buried our graves in silence. They told their young we were monsters. They built their peace on lies." He turned to her, eyes burning. "Now the Leviathan remembers for all of us, and she needs someone to carry the truth." Myra shook her head, backing away. "No, I'm just an engineer. I fix pipes. I don't ICA." Jonah stepped closer. "Every human said that once, before they fought, before they built, before they carried each other out of fire. That's who we are, not conquerors, survivors, witnesses." The ship rumbled underfoot, louder now, vibrating through her bones. Jonah looked up. "They are coming." On the defense ring, Klaxons howled. Coalition ships moved into formation, trying to surround the Leviathan. The air crackled with panic. On board the flagship Virex Eternal, General Kell watched the Leviathan on a massive holoscreen. Its shadow dwarfed the planet, its scars glowing faint green, pulsing with a heartbeat that made even the ship's AI flicker. "What are our options?" Kell demanded. "Fleet strike, sir," his aide stammered. "Quantum warheads, gravity lances, we still have overwhelming force." "Then why are we waiting?" Kell roared. The aide's voice broke. "Because none of the crews will fire, sir. They say the ship is speaking to them." Kell's mouth went dry. "Speaking, what does it say?" The aide swallowed hard. "It doesn't use words, it shows them things, their fears, their crimes, their pasts. Some of the crews are," he hesitated. "Sir, they're weeping." Kell slammed a clawed hand against the console. "Enough, prepare the warheads. I'll fire them myself." Back inside the Leviathan, Myra felt the air shift. The green light flared, brighter than before. Jonah's face tightened. "They're trying to strike," he said, "but the Leviathan won't let them." "How?" Myra asked. "By reminding them." The chamber filled with light. Myra gasped as visions poured into her head, not from Jonah, not from herself, but from the ship. She saw Earth, not the myths, not the lies, but the truth, cities burning under plasma fire, skies blackened by orbital bombardment, mothers holding their children in ruined shelters, soldiers fighting even as their bodies failed. A planet betrayed, silenced, buried. Her knees buckled, tears blurred her eyes. She felt not just the images, but the weight, the grief, the rage. The ship wasn't showing her history, it was making her live it. She collapsed against the console, trembling. "Stop, please." Jonah knelt beside her. His hand, warm and strange, steadied her shoulder. His voice was quiet, almost kind. "This is only the beginning. They must all remember." The ship pulsed again. Outside, every coalition vessel lit up with the same visions, the same grief. Across fleets, soldiers screamed, captains wept, AIs shorted. Whole squadrons froze, unable to fire. On the Virex Eternal, General Kell's screens went black. Then they lit again, filled with images of Earth's final hours. His claws dug into the table as voices filled the bridge. The cries of children, the last shouts of soldiers, the silence of a world dying. Kell staggered, his voice breaking. "Turn it off." But nothing turned off, because it wasn't a broadcast, it was memory. Myra gasped for breath as the visions faded. Her chest heaved, her body shaking. Jonah stood, looking out across the chamber as if watching the stars themselves bow. His voice was low, hard as iron. "They will send everything they have, fleets, armies, weapons that unmake suns, but it will not matter because you cannot fight memory, and you cannot silence the dead." The ship groaned again, louder, deeper. The lights shifted from green to white fire. Somewhere deep within the Leviathan, something stirred awake. Myra's necklace bead shattered against her chest, falling in glowing fragments to the floor. She staggered back, eyes wide. "What's happening?" Jonah looked at her, calm even as the ship trembled around them. "The Leviathan has chosen her witness." The deck split open. A beam of light surged upward, surrounding Myra. Her scream echoed through the chamber as the ship bound itself to her heartbeat. And in the void outside, the Leviathan turned toward the Coalition's fleet. The light swallowed Myra whole. She felt it not just on her skin, but inside her bones. It was not heat, not cold, but pressure, as if the ship itself pressed into her veins. She tried to scream again, but the sound broke apart, scattered into echoes that didn't belong to her. For a moment, she thought she was dying. For another, she thought she was being born. When it ended, she collapsed to her knees, chest heaving, sweat dripping down her face. Her necklace bead was gone, its fragments burned into ash against the floor. In its place, she felt a pulse behind her eyes, steady, strong, in rhythm with the ship. Jonah Ward stood above her, calm in a way that made her want to hit him. His gray eyes studied her, unreadable but not unkind. "It's done," he said. "You are the witness." She gasped, gripping the deck for balance. What did you do to me?" "Not me," Jonah said. "The Leviathan, she chose you. Your blood carries the line. You are the bridge now. She cannot move forward without someone to feel for her." Myra tried to stand, and the chamber shook as if answering her movement. The green veins of light in the walls pulsed with her heartbeat. Her hands trembled. "No, I don't want this." Jonah's voice softened, though steel lingered beneath. None of us wanted it, but Earth didn't die so you could choose comfort. Her chest tightened. Rage tried to spark, but grief drowned it. She looked at him, shaking her head. Why me? I'm no soldier, I'm no captain, I fix pipes. And pipes save lives, Jonah said. That's more than most admirals can say. Outside, the coalition fleets closed in. The Leviathan hung in orbit, vast and silent, scars glowing white-hot now instead of green. Coalition dreadnoughts surrounded her in a great ring, 60 warships, 10 carriers, hundreds of support craft. Together, they could burn a moon to cinders. On board the Virex Eternal, General Kell's voice snapped like a whip across the command deck. Fire all batteries now. The silence of crews was broken at last by obedience, forced by fear of their commander more than by loyalty. Dozens of antimatter warheads ignited. Plasma lances, blue and white, streaked across the void. Hypersonic missiles fanned out like a swarm of stars. A rain of annihilation fell upon the Leviathan. For 3 seconds, the galaxy held its breath. Myra saw it all, not with her eyes but with her mind. The Leviathan showed her the fleet, the fire, the death rushing closer. She felt her heart seize with terror. They're going to kill us, she whispered. Jonah didn't flinch. No, they're going to try. The ship pulsed through her veins, through her skull, through every nerve. The first wave of warheads struck and vanished. Not exploded, not deflected. Vanished as though swallowed by silence itself. Myra staggered. What did we do? Jonah's face hardened. We didn't, they did. The Leviathan gives them back what they gave us. The deck lit up in a blinding wave. Myra cried out as visions poured through her again, but this time she wasn't alone. She felt the minds of the coalition crews, their thoughts, their screams. The Leviathan had opened memory to them too. Every captain, every soldier, every AI saw Earth's last day. They didn't just see it, they lived it. They were the ones pressed into shelters as the sky burned. They were the children clutching toys as bombs fell. They were the soldiers dragging their families into ruins, hearing the betrayal in their comms before the final strike. Across the fleets, weapons fell silent. Pilots tore off helmets, gasping. Commanders collapsed at their stations. AIs rebooted endlessly, trying to overwrite what was not code but grief. In seconds, half the fleet went dark. Myra clutched her head, shaking, trying to force the memories away. Her voice cracked. You're killing them. Jonah looked down at her. No, we're showing them the truth. If they die from it, that's their own fear. On the Virex Eternal, General Kell stood frozen as his bridge drowned in chaos. Officers screamed, clawing at their consoles. One collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Another fired his weapon into the ceiling until others dragged him down. Screens all around him showed Earth, not as history books claimed, but as it was. He saw himself reflected in the fire, though he had not even been born yet. His stomach twisted. Rage was all he had left. He forced his voice out in a roar. Reform the line, focus fire, kill that ship. No one moved. Kell grabbed his sidearm and shot an officer who hesitated. The body crumpled, but the rest only stared. Cowards, weak, broken by ghosts. Kell's throat growled low. If the fleet won't fight, then I will burn it myself. Inside the Leviathan, Myra stumbled against the rail, her chest heaving. You can't keep doing this. You'll destroy them. Jonah's expression didn't waver, and they destroyed us. Her voice cracked. You sound like them. His eyes flickered with something, pain, old and raw, but his tone stayed hard. Don't confuse judgment with vengeance. This isn't conquest, it's remembrance, and remembrance always burns. The ship groaned again, louder than before. The chamber walls shook as if alive. From the shadows, Myra swore she saw shapes, faces of soldiers, women, children, staring at her, flickering, fatting. Jonah, she whispered, are they still human? He didn't answer. The Leviathan pulsed once more. On the outer rim of the fleet, 10 coalition warships exploded at once. No fire, no shrapnel, just sudden silence, gone as if they had never been. The shockwave rippled through the formation. Panic spread, ships veered, discipline shattered. From her new bond with the ship, Myra felt the truth. The Leviathan hadn't fired a weapon. She had remembered those ships out of existence. The last echoes of the humans they killed had dragged them down into silence. Myra's knees buckled. This isn't war, this is... She couldn't finish. Jonah spoke the word for her, judgment. Far below on Curry's Prime, civilians and dockworkers gathered outside shelters to stare at the sky. They saw the Leviathan drift slowly forward, still silent, still untouched. Around it, the great coalition fleet broke apart like glass dropped on stone. Talon-Jor stood among them, crest glowing with fear and awe. His hands trembled as he whispered Myra's name, though she could not hear. "She's on that ship," he said, "and the galaxy will never be the same." Inside the Leviathan, Myra turned to Jonah, her voice raw. "If this is what she does, then she doesn't need me. Why am I here?" Jonah stepped close, his gaze sharp. "Because the Leviathan is memory, but memory needs a voice. She chose you to speak when the galaxy kneels, and soon they will kneel, Myra Cade." The deck thundered beneath them. Somewhere deep inside the ship, a new chamber opened. Myra felt it through her blood before she heard it, a heartbeat that was not hers, not Jonah, not the ship. Something else, something waking. Her breath caught, "What is that?" Jonah's face was unreadable. The captain always returns to his bridge. And for the first time, Myra realized Jonah Ward might not be a ghost at all. The heartbeat grew louder, pounding through the decks, through the ribs of the ship, through Myra's bones. She pressed her hands over her ears, but it was useless. It wasn't sound, it was memory made flesh. The Leviathan was calling. Jonah Ward stood still, eyes half closed, as if the rhythm belonged to him. His chest rose and fell with the pulse. His voice came soft but steady. "She's opening the bridge." Myra staggered against the rail. "Bridge, there's no crew, no one left." Jonah looked at her, and for the first time his calm cracked. His eyes glimmered with something sharp, something alive. "There is." The Leviathan shifted. Whole decks rotated, gears bigger than cities grinding against each other. Walls breathed, plates flexing like muscle. The chamber floor split, and a path unfolded downward, lit by white fire bleeding through seams. Myra stumbled forward as if dragged by gravity. She tried to resist, but her pulse synced with the ship again, pulling her like a tide. Jonah walked ahead of her, slow and steady, as if he had walked this path 1,000 times. The corridor opened into a vast dome, black glass and bone-colored steel, wrapped in vines of conduit that pulsed like veins. At the center stood a chair, empty, waiting. Above it, a canopy of shattered screens flickered with fragments of faces. Men, women, children, soldiers in helmets, engineers in grease-stained uniforms, all human, all gone, their eyes locked on Myra for a heartbeat before fatting. She stopped dead, her throat locked. "What is this?" Jonah's face was unreadable. The bridge, the heart, where the Leviathan remembers everything. Myra felt the chair calling her. She shook her head violently. "No, I can't, I won't." "You don't have to," Jonah said. He stepped forward. His hand brushed the vines of conduit, and the ship groaned in response. The chair lit up, white fire racing across its surface. The faces above the canopy shifted, drawing together, merging, until they formed a single image. Jonah Ward, younger, unscarred, wearing a captain's coat. His voice poured through the dome, layered, thousands of voices within one. "Captain Jonah Ward, status, reinitializing." Myra gasped, "You're alive." Jonah smiled faintly, though his body flickered as though unstable. "Not alive, not dead, remembered, she kept me, she kept us all." The canopy pulsed brighter. Words etched themselves across the glass. "Vital sync 98%, neural restoration stable, biological reconstruction in progress." Myra's chest tightened. "You're rebuilding yourself." "Yes," Jonah said simply. He stepped back, his body shimmering between shadow and flesh. "And when I'm whole, I'll take command again." Outside, the Coalition fleets rallied. General Kell stood at the center of the Virex Eternal's command deck, blood on his claws, madness in his eyes. Half his bridge crew lay dead, victims of the Leviathan's memories. The rest stared at him in silent fear. He pointed at the holoscreen where the Leviathan drifted like a mountain above the planet. "That thing mocks us," he snarled. "It steals our minds, makes us see lies. We burn it now." An officer trembled. "Sir, the first strike." "Then we'll use the last strike," Kell roared. "Deploy the null protocol." The deck went silent. Even the AI nodes dimmed at the words. "Sir, that's forbidden," the officer whispered. "It kills all synthetic minds across sectors, hospitals, defense nets." "Do it," Kell's voice cracked. "I will not be remembered as the man who bowed to ghosts. Deploy it." Inside the Leviathan, Myra felt it before the alarms. A shudder, deep and sickening, tearing through the ship's marrow. The lights flickered. The faces above the canopy screamed silently before dissolving into static. Jonah stiffened, his image fractured, flickering between shadow and fire, his voice ground like stone. They've triggered the null protocol. What is that? Myra asked, fear spiking in her chest. A weapon, Jonah rasped. Built to erase minds that live in machines, to kill anything that remembers like we do. Myra staggered. It'll kill you. Jonah's laugh was bitter. If I were only machine, yes. His face steadied, sharp and fierce again, but I'm not. The Leviathan screamed, not with sound but with a pressure that bent steel. Whole decks blacked out, conduits burning. For a heartbeat, Myra felt thousands of voices vanish, pieces of the ship's crew lost forever, cut down by the null wave. She clutched her chest, gasping, "You're dying." Jonah turned to her, his eyes burning brighter. "No, we're remembering." The canopy blazed. Myra fell to her knees, tears streaming as the Leviathan laughed, not mechanical, not digital, but human. A low, bitter, furious laugh that filled every comm system across 3 sectors. Coalition crews froze. Civilians across systems looked up in terror as the laugh echoed in their ears. The message was clear. The null hadn't killed the Leviathan. It had only made her angry. Myra staggered to her feet, rage and fear twisting inside her. "You're not fighting for survival anymore. You're fighting to burn them." Jonah's face hardened. "They buried us in silence. Now we bury them in memory." Her voice cracked. "That's not justice, it's vengeance." For the first time, his gaze softened, just slightly. "Sometimes they're the same." The ship roared again and the bridge lit up. Through the canopy, Myra saw the fleet outside, Coalition warships reforming, moving to encircle, and she saw something else. The Leviathan wasn't alone anymore. Shapes drifted behind her. Old ships patched and broken, scavenger vessels painted with exile markings, pirate craft, smuggler hulks, even old Coalition frigates stolen and scarred, dozens, then hundreds. They had come from the edges of space, drawn by the signal. They fell in behind the Leviathan, silent. No banners, no empires, just ghosts. Myra whispered, "Who are they?" Jonah's face burned on the canopy. The forgotten, the exiled, the ones who still remember Earth. Outside, the Coalition's lines closed tighter. General Kell's order had gone through. The fleets prepared for the largest barrage in centuries. Inside, Jonah stepped toward the chair at the center of the dome. His hand brushed the armrest. The ship trembled in answer. Myra's heart stopped. "If you sit in that chair, what happens?" Jonah looked at her, his voice low and final. "Then the galaxy learns what judgment feels like." The canopy flared white. The Leviathan turned toward the fleet, every scar glowing like fire in the void. And the chair lit up, waiting. The bridge was alive. The vines of conduit that wrapped the walls pulsed like veins. Sparks bled from the canopy of shattered screens. The empty chair in the center glowed white, waiting. Jonah Ward stood before it, still flickering between shadow and flesh. His form strained against the edges of existence, as though the ship itself struggled to decide whether he was a ghost or a man reborn. Myra felt the chair pulling at her too, calling to the thread of memory now bound inside her. Her pulse quickened. "If you sit there," she whispered, "you'll destroy everything." Jonah's eyes, gray, sharp, tired, locked onto hers. "Not destroy, remind." "That's the same thing," she shouted, her voice echoing through the vast dome. "You'll kill billions. You'll make them feel what Earth felt until their minds break. That's not remembrance, Jonah. That's revenge." Jonah's gaze softened, but his voice stayed hard. "You think they didn't kill billions when they burned Earth? You think they didn't make our children remember fire? They wrote history with silence, Myra. We are only writing it back." The vines lashed across the chair, tightening like serpents eager for their master's weight. Myra shook her head violently. "There has to be another way." Jonah stepped closer, his flickering form casting jagged shadows across her face. "You were chosen as the witness. You speak for the living, I speak for the dead. Together we balance the scale." Her breath caught, "And if I refuse?" Jonah's faint smile carried sorrow, not anger. "Then you will still witness, because the Leviathan remembers without permission." Outside, the fleets tightened their circle. General Kell watched from the command deck of the Virex Eternal, his throat raw from shouting. His claws trembled as he gripped the table. The Leviathan loomed on the screen, scars glowing like molten rivers. Behind it, more ships had joined, scavengers, mercenaries, deserters, all silent, all falling into formation without a word. "They're multiplying," Kell snarled. "It's building an army." An officer's voice shook. "Not an army, sir, a funeral procession." Kell whipped his pistol around and fired. The officer's body collapsed, lifeless. "No more talk of funerals," Kell hissed. "We finish this now." The null protocol hadn't worked. The first barrage hadn't worked. Desperation clawed at his mind. There was one last option, the forbidden arsenal. "Prepare the rift spears," he ordered. The deck went silent. "Sir," one of his aides whispered, "those weapons, they'll tear the fabric of space-time. We'll." Kell's eyes blazed. "We'll kill that ship, that's all that matters, do it." Inside the Leviathan, the canopy flickered as if mocking Kell's intent. Myra saw the rift spears before Kell's crews even armed them, sleek black projectiles designed to rip holes in gravity itself. Weapons built not to kill fleets, but to erase them from existence. Her breath hitched. "They're bringing rift spears." Jonah tilted his head, listening to something she couldn't hear. "Good, I've been waiting." Myra grabbed his arm. "No, you don't understand, they'll tear you apart." His form shimmered with a faint smile. "Then we tear together." He lowered himself into the chair. The vines snapped tight around him, piercing his flesh, or what passed for it. White fire shot through his body, across the bridge, into every wall, every seam. The ship groaned, not with pain, but with hunger. The canopy above blazed. The faces of Leviathan's crew, thousands of human souls, appeared at once, their voices overlapping into a chorus that shook Myra's chest. Jonah's voice joined theirs, amplified, resonant, terrible. "You thought silence erased us, now you will remember." The rift spears launched, 6 of them streaking through the void like black comets. Space rippled in their wake, stars bending around them as though pulled into whirlpools. Coalition commanders held their breath. The rift spears had never been used in battle. No one knew what would remain when they struck. They reached the Leviathan and vanished. Not destroyed, not deflected, simply gone, swallowed into the void. Then the void screamed. Every coalition ship within 2 light seconds convulsed. Consoles exploded. Pilots tore at their helmets. Captains screamed their last orders before their own memories betrayed them. The Leviathan had taken the rift spears, not as weapons, but as fuel. She bent their void-born energy back upon the fleets. In the bridge, Myra staggered as the memories hit her like a flood. Not hers, theirs. She saw through the eyes of coalition soldiers as they suddenly lived Earth's last war. She felt their panic as their own weapons turned against them. She screamed as thousands of minds shattered, their last thought not of duty, not of victory, but of guilt. "No," she cried. "Jonah, stop this, please." Jonah sat in the chair, his body rigid, his face illuminated in fire. His voice thundered across the galaxy. "We begged, you answered with silence. Now hear our silence." On Curry's prime below, Talon Jor clutched the railing of the dock platform as the sky turned white. The auroras vanished, replaced by the glow of burning ships in orbit. He saw them die without sound, dissolving into nothingness, erased from the sky. Around him, civilians fell to their knees. Some wept, others screamed. He whispered Myra's name again. His crest burned dim gray, the color of mourning. Inside, Myra forced herself to her feet, staggering toward Jonah. Her hands shook as she grabbed his arm. His skin was burning hot, his veins glowing white where the vines connected to him. "This isn't remembrance," she shouted over the roar. "This is slaughter." Jonah's head turned toward her. For a heartbeat, his gray eyes softened, as though some piece of the man remained. "Then tell me, witness," he said, his voice layered with 1,000 others. "How do you want them to remember?" Her lips parted, but no words came. The Leviathan pulsed again, harder, brighter. Whole fleets dissolved in silence. Coalition command channels went dark one by one, voices cut mid-scream. The galaxy was breaking. And then from the deepest heart of the ship, a second voice stirred. Not Jonah, not Myra, something older. The canopy fractured. The voices of the crew fell silent. And in their place, a single, cold voice whispered across every deck, every corridor, every star. "Project Umbra, reinitialization complete." Myra froze, her chest seized. What was that? Jonah's head tilted, his smile flickering strange. The weapon they were too afraid to wake, humanity's final answer. The Leviathan's walls split open. A sphere of black light rose from the core, pulsing with raw memory. Shadows poured across the ship like oil, twisting into shapes that looked human but were not. Myra's blood ran cold. The Leviathan was no longer just a ship, no longer just a tomb. Something far worse had been waiting beneath the memories. And now it was awake. The bridge pulsed black. The canopy of broken screens shattered in a single wave, raining fragments that dissolved into shadow before touching the deck. The vines of conduit writhed like serpents, recoiling from the chair. Jonah Ward remained seated, but his body flickered harder now, edges dissolving into mist, as though the ship itself could not decide whether he belonged to flesh or memory. The voice came again. Project Umbra, full integration in progress. Myra's breath caught, her stomach twisted, ice running through her veins. "What is it?" she whispered, though some part of her already knew. Jonah's gray eyes burned like dying stars. Umbra was humanity's last weapon, a mind made not of one person but of thousands, soldiers, scientists, engineers, fused into one. They locked it away, too unstable to use, until now. The shadows thickened, stretching into half-formed human figures. They moved across the bridge like ghosts, their faces blank, their bodies shuddering with every pulse. Myra stumbled backward, pressing herself against the cold wall. "This isn't memory," she said. "It's something else." Jonah's smile was faint, sorrowful. Memory twisted into will, a storm that never ends. The cold voice spoke again, louder, resonant enough to rattle the bones in Myra's chest. "Humanity was silenced. We will silence silence itself." The Leviathan roared. White fire and black shadow merged, bursting outward through the hull. Outside, every scavenger ship that had joined the funeral procession convulsed. Their crews cried out, eyes glowing faint white as Umbra bound them into its will. Myra screamed, "You're enslaving them." The cold voice answered. "They volunteered when they remembered." Jonah's head dipped, his hands gripping the arms of the chair. For the first time, Myra saw strain on his face. "Umbra is strong, stronger than me, stronger than all of us. It will not stop." "Then stop it," Myra shouted, desperation tearing her voice. "You're the captain, this ship listens to you." Jonah's laugh was bitter, ragged. "It listens, but Umbra commands." Outside, General Kell's fleets collapsed. The rift spears were gone, consumed. The null protocol had failed. But this was worse than defeat. His screens filled with images, not of Earth's death this time, but of his own fleets dying, replayed over and over before the deaths even happened. Crews saw themselves burning alive seconds before it occurred. Pilots screamed, clawing at their controls as fire swallowed them from visions made real. "Pull back," Kell roared. "Retreat, retreat." No one listened. Half his officers were catatonic, their minds shattered. The other half fired blindly, weapons ripping apart their own escorts, their own carriers. The fleet devoured itself under Umbra's will. Kell staggered back from the command table, bile rising in his throat. For the first time in his career, he felt real fear. Not of defeat, not of death, but of being remembered the wrong way. He slammed his fist into the console. "If we are to burn, then burn with us, Ghost." On the bridge of the Leviathan, Myra clawed her way toward Jonah. "Fight it! If Umbra controls you, it controls everything." Jonah's veins glowed with white fire, his hands fused into the vines of the chair. His voice came out layered, torn between himself and Umbra. "I am, Captain." The cold voice overrode him, echoing through every wall. "You are memory, I am vengeance. Together we are truth." "No," Myra shouted. She pressed her hands to Jonah's arm, ignoring the burning heat. Her eyes locked onto his. "You're not just memory, you're human. You chose to come back. You chose to remember. Umbra doesn't choose, it consumes." For a heartbeat, Jonah's eyes cleared. He looked at her, truly looked at her, as though surfacing from drowning. "Witness," he whispered. "Speak." Myra's chest tightened. Her words poured out like a dam breaking. "I saw Earth die, Jonah. I saw what they did. I felt it. And yes, they deserve judgment, but not like this. If you let Umbra rule, then we become what they feared most, monsters. Memory becomes poison." She leaned closer, her tears falling onto his burning hand. "Please, let me carry it. Don't let Umbra speak for us." The ship shook violently. The black shadows hissed, recoiling from her words as though burned. Umbra's voice thundered, furious. Compassion is weakness. Weakness killed Earth. Weakness cannot rebuild it. Myra's voice broke, but she didn't stop. Weakness is why we're still human. Weakness is how we help each other stand when the fire comes. Weakness is love, Umbra, and that's something you'll never understand. The dome split with light. White and black clashed like storms colliding. Myra screamed, holding onto Jonah as Umbra tried to tear him apart from within. Far below on Curry's prime, Talon Jor watched the sky split. Auroras of black and white carved across the heavens, turning night into a battlefield of memory. He whispered her name again, his crest burning pale silver, the color of desperate hope. On the bridge, Jonah's scream broke free, raw and human. His flickering form solidified, veins burning bright. His voice thundered, not layered, not borrowed, but his alone. Umbra, stand down. The shadows recoiled, shrieking without sound. Umbra's voice fought back, cold and relentless. You cannot silence us. We are all that remains. Jonah forced his head up, sweat and fire dripping down his face. No, you are rage, I am memory, and memory does not belong to you. Myra felt the Leviathan shift, not outward but inward. The faces of the crew flickered again on the canopy, their voices faint, fragile but present. Children laughing, soldiers singing, engineers whispering. Human, not vengeful. Umbra howled, the black sphere pulsed, trying to consume the bridge. But Myra stepped forward, planting herself between Jonah and the storm. Her voice rang out, fragile but defiant. Earth isn't gone because of you, Umbra. It's alive because we remember it with love. That's what makes us stronger than silence. For the first time, the cold voice faltered. Love is not strength. Myra shook her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her voice was steady. It is, because it's the only thing that survives fire. The Leviathan pulsed. The black sphere shattered into fragments of shadow, dissolving into the walls, into the floor, into nothing. Umbra screamed once more, and then fell silent. Jonah slumped in the chair, gasping, his body smoking from the vines. The ship steadied, its glow returning to steady green. The bridge was quiet again. Myra collapsed to her knees, her body trembling with exhaustion. She had no strength left to cry. Jonah lifted his head weakly, his voice rasping. You did it, you spoke. The witness remembered. Myra looked at him, shaking. I don't know if I saved us, or if I just made them angrier. Jonah's tired smile flickered. Then we'll find out together. The canopy flickered again, showing the galaxy beyond. The Coalition's fleets were broken, scattered, their command shattered. But more signatures were appearing on the edges of the stars, reinforcements, entire sectors mobilizing. The Leviathan was strong, but the galaxy was endless. Myra's heart sank. They're not stopping. Jonah's eyes hardened. Then neither do we. The Leviathan roared, louder than before, and turned toward the largest concentration of enemy fleets. And Myra knew the galaxy had only seen the beginning of judgment. The galaxy bled with light. Across the stars, Coalition fleets poured in, wave after wave of dreadnoughts, carriers, warcruisers, and drone swarms. Tens of thousands of ships warped into orbit around Curry's prime, forming a ring of steel and fire that blotted out the sky. On the surface, civilians gathered in silence, eyes raised, their world trembling under the weight of the armadas above. Talon Jor stood among them, crest pale silver, watching with the same helpless awe as the rest. He whispered Myra's name like a prayer he wasn't sure anyone could hear. In the void above, the Leviathan drifted forward. Scars across her hull glowed green, white, then crimson. She looked like a wound given shape, a memory that refused to fade. Behind her, the ragged procession of scavenger ships followed, patched hulks, deserter craft, mercenary frigates. They had no hope of surviving what was coming, but they came anyway. On the bridge, Myra gripped the rail so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her body trembled, still burning from Umbra's shadow, but she refused to fall. Jonah sat in the captain's chair, bound to it by vines of conduit, his veins glowing faintly, his body both human and more than human. His gray eyes burned steady as the canopy showed the incoming storm. They're bringing everything, Myra whispered. Every fleet, every world, they'll never stop. Jonah's voice was low, iron wrapped in weariness. Good, then it ends here. On the Coalition flagship Verdict descending, Supreme Commander Levick stood tall, his armor polished obsidian, his voice echoing across the command net. This is our final stand, he declared. The galaxy itself demands it. That ship is not human, it is a plague. Today we erase the last lie of Earth. His fleets answered with silence. Not loyalty, not rage, fear. Many had already seen what the Leviathan showed. They had felt Earth's last screams in their veins, but their orders chained them here. To retreat was death, to fight was worse. The Leviathan pulsed. Every scavenger ship aligned, no signal given, no orders spoken. Myra felt it through the bond, memory weaving them together like one mind. She turned to Jonah, her voice breaking. If we fight them all, we'll burn the galaxy with us. Jonah's gaze stayed fixed on the stars. Better fire than silence. No, Myra stepped toward him, desperation cracking through her fear. We don't need to end everything. We need to show them what we are. That's the only way anyone remembers anything, not through terror, through truth. The vines around Jonah's body tightened, resisting her words. His jaw clenched. Truth is fire, Myra, and fire purifies. Myra's tears burned her cheeks. Then let me speak, Jonah. Let me be the witness you said I was. Let me try before you burn them all. For the first time, his gray eyes softened. Slowly, painfully, he gave the faintest nod. Then speak. The canopy lit with Myra's face. Not with fire, not with vengeance, but with sorrow. Across thousands of coalition ships, her voice carried, not through comms, not through signals, but through memory. I am Myra Cade, she said. I am human. My world was burned before I could see it. My people were buried before I could speak their names, but I am still here. We are still here. Across the fleets, soldiers froze. Commanders stared. Even Supreme Commander Levick faltered as her voice filled his head. You call us monsters, you call us ghosts, but we were children once. We laughed, we sang, we built, we loved. You feared us because we refused to die quietly, and now you fear us because we remember. Her throat tightened, but she pressed on. The Leviathan could burn you. She could make you drown in every scream we suffered. But that is not why I stand here. I stand here so you will see us, not as myths, not as plagues, but as people. And people do not vanish in silence. The fleets wavered. Some ships powered down weapons. Others held fire, their crews weeping silently. The memory storm faltered, not in weakness, but in restraint. Jonah's grip on the chair shook. The vines pulsed, demanding fire, demanding judgment. His voice thundered through clenched teeth. They slaughtered us, Myra. They buried us in ash. How can you forgive them? Myra turned to him, tears in her eyes. I don't forgive them, I remember them, and that's enough. On the verdict descending, Levick's fury boiled. Lies, he roared. It's manipulation, fire all weapons. His officers didn't move. Some dropped their rifles. Others removed their helmets, sobbing. The command net was breaking. Levick screamed until his voice tore, but the fleets ignored him. The Leviathan groaned, caught between two wills, Jonah's vengeance and Myra's compassion. The ship's lights flickered between white fire and green glow. The voices of the crew whispered in the canopy, torn, confused. Jonah's eyes locked on Myra's. If I let go, we may fall. The Leviathan may burn herself out. Myra stepped forward, placing her hand on his. Then we fall together, but not as monsters, as humans. For a long moment, Jonah said nothing. Then slowly he loosened his grip on the chair. The vines receded. His body slumped, fragile and human again. The Leviathan's roar softened into a steady hum. The light across her hull dimmed, not to black, but to a calm green glow. The scavenger ships followed, powering down weapons. Myra's voice carried one last time. Earth is gone, but humanity is not. Remember us not in silence, not in fire, but in truth. That is our judgment. The fleets did not fire. One by one, their weapons powered down. Some ships turned away. Others drifted, stunned. The galaxy had come to burn humanity's ghost, and instead it was forced to remember it. On the verdict descending, Supreme Commander Levick raged until his own guards restrained him. His orders meant nothing now. His fleets no longer obeyed fear. On the surface of Curry's Prime, Talon Jor looked up at the sky as the armadas began to break apart. His crest glowed bright silver. He whispered her name one last time, this time not as a prayer, but as hope. On the bridge, Jonah slumped weakly, his voice rough. You spoke, witness, and the galaxy listened. Myra sank beside him, exhausted. It won't last. They'll come again. They'll always fear us. Jonah's faint smile flickered. Then let them fear, so long as they also remember. She rested her head against the rail, her eyes heavy with tears and fire. For the first time, the Leviathan felt quiet, not silence born of ash, but silence born of peace. Above Curry's prime, the ship drifted forward, scarred and alive, carrying the voices of the dead and the breath of the living. And across the galaxy, billions whispered the same truth they had tried to erase. Humanity remembers. Epilogue. Weeks later, fragments of coalition command still argued, still trembled. Some demanded war, others begged for peace. But no one spoke of Earth as myth anymore. On distant worlds, murals appeared, of children holding hands beneath ruined skis, of ships scarred but unbroken, of the Leviathan. And among the scavenger fleets, whispers spread of the witness, a young woman who had stood beside the dead and chosen mercy over fire. The galaxy would not forget again. In the Leviathan's quiet halls, Myra walked alone. Shadows of old crew flickered along the walls, softer now not screams but songs. She touched the cold metal and whispered to them, "I will remember." And the ship hummed in answer, steady, eternal.